While President Obama spent the day meeting with Chinese President Hu Jintao, the First Lady held her own event, urging students to study abroad in China.
Michelle Obama.
The topic of today's panel, which is the importance of studying abroad, particularly in China, you have to understand is a key component of this administration's foreign policy agenda.
President Obama speaking with several hundred students at the Museum of Science and Technology
I just want to make
in
sure
Shanghai.
This works. There are very few global challenges that can be solved unless the United States and China agree.
From climate change and energy security to nuclear nonproliferation or international financial stability, these are all issues that are in the U.S. and China's interests. Therefore, we must educate the next generation of young Americans who will lead and manage that relationship going forward.
Our goal is to send 100,000 students to China over the next 4 years.
That's why I'm pleased to announce that the United States will dramatically expand the number of our students who study in China to 100,000. And these exchanges mark a clear commitment to build ties among our people as surely as you will help determine the destiny of the 21st century.
The typical study abroad student anywhere, not just to China, is white, female, from the middle or upper socioeconomic classes and enrolled in a 4-year college and university.
You got me? Which one of y'all got it?
We also think that we need to find opportunities for underrepresented groups to study in China as well.
As one of the founders of APSA, we really felt like, having lived in China for an extended period of time, that when we traveled back to the United States, we could see this significant gap in understanding between the US and China. And so at a very basic level, that's what we're trying to address. And we're trying to have more Americans, more young people who have a better understanding of China.
This is the wonderful Royale Jones locker.
Our target student is somebody who couldn't come to China any other way.
My name is Royale Jones. I attend Bellu Senior High School. I found out about the study trip in China and I was chosen. I was excited, but I was also surprised because we're Bellu. We're in the root, I guess, of the ghetto.
My name is Jeffrey Wood. I attend Theodore Roosevelt Senior High School. I would like to go to China because if I was to go in the business world, there's a lot of interpreters that speak Spanish, and they'll say, oh, do you speak Spanish? And then you say, oh, I speak Chinese. Well, they're looking at you like, wow, oh, you speak Chinese? I didn't know that.
On Beijing. Yeah, you going?
Hell nah. This is an avenue.
My name is Aniqua Shadis McNeil. I'm in the 11th grade. Well, I'm going to the 12th.
I want to live there on my own and find myself maybe and try to get the feeling of China, what China really is.
Come on, get him, Terry. Come on, let's go. You got it.
I would hope that she can come back a totally different young lady. She has to know that knowing fluent Chinese is going to help her in the end.
I think it's very important that we extend the kinds of opportunities for students with disadvantaged backgrounds to study abroad and to really prepare them in this 21st century global economy.
The difficulty is in getting students to even agree to go. They're just scared to even fill out the application. So the fact that Jeffrey sat down, wrote essays, filled out an application that intimidated, I asked 5 other students if they wanted to do it and they all declined.
I remember one young man saying that none of his family had even been outside the metropolitan Washington area, which was a very sad commentary. But also, it makes it such a rich experience for them to go elsewhere.
I told my mom, I said, I'm going to China. And she screamed, she's like, you going to China? She was like, yeah. And then she started hugging me and she was all proud of me and stuff. And she started crying and stuff. I probably will never forget that. I can't call you every day. I can email you every day. I could talk to you once or twice a week. And I can email you.
You've never been this far away from home, and I'm just, oh, Lord.
I think Jeffrey, from this experience, will understand how big the world is. It's one of the things that is hard for students who have limited access to areas outside of DC.
I think all too often you have students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds don't nearly get the exposure.
I'm Anika's godmother. I met her through the community center, which I work at. We kind of act like mediators, mentors, and mostly all, we're parents. We're parents to a lot of these kids because unfortunately a lot of them don't have that type of support.
The Southeast neighborhood, everyone thinks it's all ghetto.
All too often, the Anacostia River has been almost like a moat. People who live on the east side considered deprived and subject to all kinds of problems, and people on the west side seemingly having better opportunities and better outcomes.
Usually when you tell someone you're from the South Side, I usually look at you different because the South Side has a bad reputation. Maybe you can't read it right or you don't know how to act.
All too often, people think, well, that's for the smartest kids, or that's for the kids from well-to-do families. But no, all means all in this country. And frankly, it's the fabric and the vitality of this country.
My Chinese name is Ma Qian, International Council for Chinese Language.
Called me say, are you interested to help us to, set up a Chinese program in Washington, D.C. And it sounds really interesting. It's how I got here. His mom is funny. His mom is very interesting.
Look at the map of Beijing. So what do you think? Compare with Beijing and D.C., what do you think? Bigger. Nice? Based on the map, we can see it's nicer or not? I'm going to chaperone the students in Beijing. Right now, we're giving the students some orientation classes. So hopefully, when they get there, they will not be so stressed.
Okay, I'm not leaving on the stage. We come here on this morning thanking you once again for allowing our children to have been blessed enough to take this life-altering journey. We ask you for safe travel. We ask you for open hearts and minds.
I never rode a plane before.
That's the first thing that came to my mind, that I had a fear of being on a flight for 13 hours.
No, we in China. No, we in Beijing.
Something we really wanted to focus on was how do we get them to meet Chinese high school students.
The Binovocational School is a school for children to learn tasks and jobs that they can apply in their lives in the city. We did activities, we basically got into groups, met each other, and did a lot of things just to get to know each other.
So really what we were trying to do is just kind of have an icebreaker, get to know the other students, have a chance to interact. It was the first time they were really meeting Chinese contemporaries during the course of the summer.
So what we're gonna do is just go around and introduce yourselves a little bit.
My name is Said. I'm 16 years old. I like sleep and play games. Yeah.
And people got to know each other throughout these whole activities, and just there on interacted.
我是 Gabe, 我17岁, 我喜欢打网球.
It is important that our young people forge ties and form friendships with their Chinese peers, because they are going to be the ones, regardless of what profession they go into, they're the ones who are going to need to know how to interact with Chinese and American counterparts.
A-L-L.
I definitely had a lot of fun because I met one girl named Nina. So I kind of talked to her, exchanged information with her, got her email and stuff.
to be at breakfast at 7:30. I'm always late for breakfast.
We get on the bus at 8 o'clock, and we get to the school around 8:20.
And we'll have 5 different levels. Chinese class for students from 8:30 to 12 o'clock.
我想和你做朋友。我想和你做朋友。听懂了吗？
Having simply more Americans who've learned the language and tried to struggle through that and then use the language to learn about a culture is a useful skill whatever you do.
I know some basic things. 我叫 Gabe. My name's Gabe. So it'll really give me a chance to try my Chinese on actual speakers of the language. I hope to learn more so I can actually get by in China to be passable in like daily life.
送你一个北京烤鸭。
My Chinese, I actually been learning a lot. The first week, my teacher, Jean Lasher, she taught us basically like greetings.
Tones is the leveling of your voice. Ma, no. Ma, 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 ma.
Characters are the way you write it, like really write it in Chinese. When you write it someone.
朋友。Which one should I do next? Okay.
朋友。
I think it's
my friend is
We have 2-3 students kind of struggled at the very beginning.
I do characters. Don't I do characters good?
Don't hate something.
Pinyin hard.
I study every day. It's just that it's just kind of hard. We'd help each other on our homework and how to pronounce certain things and read.
Normally the evening we keep it open to students for catching up with their Chinese homework.
我们喝什么酒？ I just feel like I just have to like really work at it. I'm getting it, and if my hardest is not good enough, then I don't know what more to give.
I feel like I made a lot of progress.
Sean.
Yes.
Sean. Wu.
Yes.
It's actually kind of fun. I recognize the character and know what it says and know what it means. Oh, this is Wu.
Boo.
In almost every professional field, China will play a role, whether our students become fluent in Mandarin, which we hope they will, or just learn something about another culture so that they are global citizens as well as U.S. citizens. That will benefit them in their careers going forward.
My theory is Chinese is a tough language to learn. Unless you have some other incentive to keep up with it, it's a tough slog. And for some people, that other incentive is they fall in love with the culture or they love calligraphy.
Normally in the afternoon, we have the Chinese culture classes.
Going inward, going up, and join them.
So far I've learned just to write a few characters. I've learned like there's a basic stroke order that you have to follow. It's very important the way you hold the brush.
Like you had to write it a certain way. He was teaching us how to write it, and I really couldn't get it down pat.
Tai Chi Chinese, we're taking it now, and I like it a lot, but it's not the same as martial arts. It's quite different. I didn't really understand the difference. I had a misconception that a lot of Americans have that Tai Chi and Wushu and Kung Fu are all the same thing.
Wushu is like kind of different. Like he was just saying stuff like quiet your heart and don't talk and just, focus and like just go with the flow.
There are many ways for a student to come here and study the language and study the culture. But I think in our program we focus very much on what a student can do if they stick with the study of the language. So they visit companies like Coca-Cola and Google and others who are here. We wanted to sort of add that to the conversation about study abroad, that it wasn't just about falling in love with a language or about studying a culture, but about what you can do with it in the future. A lot of what goes on in China, a lot of reason foreigners come here is business. And it's core in the sense of what we are as a program, that we include those opportunities to look at international careers.
In the second floor, we will see the production line.
American companies like Coke are supporting study abroad to China financially, opening their doors to our students for all sorts of reasons.
One, they see the value in doing something that supports constructive U.S.-China relations. It is in everyone's interest that the United States and China can sit down at a table, and even when we don't agree on everything, can have constructive dialogue.
I think the opportunity here now is for American students to connect with the fastest growing economy in the world. The economy that in large measure is going to define what the world looks like over the next 10, 20, 30 years. We're obviously going to need to have people who speak the language, who are comfortable in the environment, and these things only happen through these kinds of educational exchanges.
Green Long March is organized by an NGO here in China to do research about environmental initiatives that are going on in China, but then also environmental awareness campaigns across China. Aside from being a really interesting, really successful NGO, it just brings a lot to our students. It's the opportunity to visit and meet with young Chinese activists. Our students went out to the Inner Mongolia leg of the Green Long March. There's a saying in Chinese which is 中国缺什么不缺人, which is like if China's missing anything, it's not missing people. So we're on the train now, we got 12 hours to kill. Only one rule, don't get off the train.
Where's the dining car? People were just sitting on the floor. I couldn't see myself sitting on the floor for 12 hours. I would have to steal somebody's seat and be like, look, I'm sorry. I would be like, I'm deaf, literally, or I can't see, or I'm injured. Anyway, they have food in this room right here. We're gonna go get it.
What really got me was when we were getting closer to Baotou and we started to see the less developed areas, and we started to see like the coal fields and the more industrial and rural China that most of us did not have the opportunity to see. So it was really incredible to see some outside of Beijing, because Beijing is not typical of China.
We hoped we could really give them not one more tourist site, but a lens into some other part of China, some other stage of development. It was interesting for them to see the road on the way from the city to the village outside the window of the bus.
When we got to the village, we were greeted by a crowd of people that surrounded us.
We're the only foreigners, and I was talking to some of the locals, and they said that we were like one of the first foreigners they had met, and it was really interesting to see that.
We are here today in Forever Prosperous Village. We have a team of Green Long March students that are researching biogas. And biogas is a big deal in China. It's known as the biogas capital of the world. People come from all over to study how successful biogas is in rural China. Biogas unit uses 3 kinds of poo, and Lu Ai goes out and she collects the poo pretty much daily, and she puts it down in the biodigester unit you'll see back there. Pump sends the poop down into the digester. Don't breathe too deep.
You know, it was interesting for them to see the biogas. It was also just interesting for them to see the village.
你好，你好，我认识高兴。我们美国人。
We encourage students not just to go to Beijing and Shanghai, those are wonderful cities, but also to go inland and really see the different ways the Chinese live.
We took a bus to Dandelion School, which was about an hour and a half. It was a school for migrant children. The purpose of us going to the Dandelion School was to teach migrant children English.
Migrant people were people who like come to like Beijing. They build a lot here in Beijing, but their kids are not able to get education here because they're not registered. This is not like where they were born. Either Americans or people who live here in China create schools for them because there's no other way for them to get education.
The principal is a very experienced educator.
We decide we'll do something meaningful for others and also meaningful for our own life.
It was really much more bare. Thin roads that aren't really well paved, open sewage, and we were starting to see what Dandelion was about.
13. They knew a little bit of English, but they didn't know much. They knew like some numbers and stuff. So I went in and taught them songs and They knew 1 through 20, so I taught them 1 through 25, and I played games with them, and I taught them head, shoulder, knees, and toes. Knees and toes, head, shoulder, knees and toes, knees and toes.
You know, I think that the teaching part really worked well. Our kids got a lot out of that, but then also just sharing the meals with them and how there would be like some instructional time and then, okay, activity time. Then it's, you know, prepare for meal time, and then it's meal time, and then it's clean up after meal time. And our kids, you know, are so used to individuality.
Well, the living conditions are not that great. We slept in this room where there was no air. It was kind of hot and it was kind of sticky.
Ended up sleeping actually outside, like on the concrete, like just under the basketball courts.
I thought we were supposed to get up or rise up. I saw them lining up and I thought we were supposed to do everything with them, and I kind of wanted to, because that way it felt more like we were a part of it. We weren't just coming in as Westerners and saying, here, we'll teach you English. So I just lined up with them. It was fun. It just made you feel more of a part of what the students were doing.
I would actually come back and teach here if I found the way to get back next year.
I wouldn't spend the night here, but I would teach here.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
Some nights.
You're just spoiled. Yeah, y'all are.
Part of their interaction with students who are the children of migrant workers here is the experience of giving something while they're here and learning that in their own abilities, in their own, whether it's the knowledge of the language or their willingness to help or their ability to reach out to these Chinese students, they have something that they can give back into the community. I think has been a very powerful experience for our students.
I felt good. I felt like a teacher. Like I felt like, I guess this is how my teachers feel when I like pass my test and everybody's doing well in the class. Like it felt really good.
It kind of made me feel luckier because I know where I'm living is 10 times better than what their living condition is. And at one point I thought where I was living was kind of bad. Sometimes people get shot at night. When I was there, I thought about, well, at least I can come home from school and kind of basically do what I want.
I didn't expect it to go by so fast. Just when we got comfortable there, just when we got connected, just when that happened, we had to leave.
I felt kind of sad because it was kind of a sad moment where kids came up to the bus and started waving at us, and they're like, don't ever forget me.
Yeah, I definitely grew from spending that weekend at Dandelion. It was a really powerful experience.
It's just mind-blowing. Whenever you look at Chinese art, you see the mountains in the background. Then you get there and you're like, oh my God, that's what it actually looks like.
It was amazing, treacherous. It made me feel accomplished because no one could take it away from me. If there's a question and they'll say, oh, no one's climbed the Great Wall before, and I'm there, and I'm like, yes, I did climb the Great Wall. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I climbed the Great Wall. I went to China last summer.
We spent a night at this village that's at the base of a mountain. We hiked up the same day up the mountain.
We were hiking up that, and it was a gorgeous day. We were really lucky. And the mountains were peeking up into the skies.
And the scenery was just beautiful. It was just so beautiful. There were so many trails, you know, forks branching off.
And then we kind of got off course.
We're lost.
China.
We don't know where we are. And we just
well, we're in China.
Lost and found another trail. We know we're in China, but we don't know where.
We were slowly realizing that it's not just about climbing a mountain, getting to the top and coming down. It's also about what you do while you're there and how you get there and relationships that grow and strengthen while you're there.
When I was climbing, I was just thinking to myself, there's gonna be so many life obstacles that I'm gonna have to keep going and going. I'm gonna feel like I wanna just stop and go back down, but I can't. That climb made me think a lot about life. Learning about China and its culture has basically changed my perception of life. If I know more about different cultures, then I know how to respond to different situations when I'm around different people. The biggest challenge for me going back to America is applying to colleges and like really thinking about what I want to do with my life.
I would sum it up as challenging and kind of a mountain type thing, as me going up, then going back down, then being in the middle, then going up, and then going back down. Every day I felt different. I know that was challenging for me because I was dealing with different people from all around the country in different culture and different backgrounds. I think by me pushing myself a lot during these 5.5 weeks, when I get back to America, that I'm not going to really have a fear of a lot of things that I had in the beginning.
I actually think I do experience personal growth. Like some of the stuff that they have taken us to, like we went to the dandelion school, that kind of like sparked it right there, because it's like all these kids they're migrants and then they come here to learn. They don't have this, they don't have that. I take a lot of stuff for granted now that I'm realizing it when you're in the States and you're such a rich, wealthy country.
What they also represent more symbolically that they can share with their peers is the experience. The experience of, you know, as much as I thought we were different, let me tell you in ways we were the same. These are the similarities of people from around the world, and these are the differences. Here's how we kind of collaborated to solve some common problems, to communicate and to learn how to build relationships with one another. Those kind of lifelong lessons that really speak to kind of the character of the human condition, I think are more lasting kind of memories and lessons that they'll be able to share with their peers.
Oh, you guys are leaving and it sucks.
Not everyone who does our program will end up being a Chinese linguist or spending a career in China. But even for those who don't, it's a powerful experience in their personal development. One line I've heard a student say once, "I've done China, I can do anything."
When people think of Baloo in the future, they'll have to remember the different ways in which your class has demonstrated being bold, courageous, and outstanding.
China trip did give me perspective about things back home for our school, for instance, because the Chinese take school as a very, very serious thing, right? They don't play with their education. This is my Penn State folder, my acceptance letter, right?
I think it speaks incredibly well of them. It obviously shows that they have a high level of curiosity, which is an important part of one's intellect. And I hope that we can get other kids to feel comfortable doing the same thing.
For college, I ended up choosing Stanford. On my college applications, whenever they asked me about why I would be a good fit, I talked about how the trip to China gave me a different perspective. I know I'm gonna end up taking way too much stuff. I think maybe it gave me kind of just an idea of what life is like on the other side of the globe. The language was big on me. Once we started, I really kind of wanted to keep learning, and I still do want to keep learning the language. This 3 characters here, Gongchang shirt, engineer. I was super excited when I learned that. I could now say in Chinese, I want to be an engineer.
Elliot came back from China very excited about language and culture. I know he is very adamant about taking Chinese when he gets to Stanford. I think it's the right place for him. I'm excited for him. He's ready. It's going to be very quiet in my house.
You know that China only holds about 13% of the U.S. foreign debt? It's not that much. Recently I started a radio show and we've began to develop a reputation on campus for being a comic and satirical review of weekly events. After coming back from China in the summer of 2009, I finished my year of high school, and in the fall I went to Georgia Tech. I'm majoring in international affairs in Mandarin. The aspects of China that you can learn in America while you're sitting in a classroom are only so much, and to learn the rest of it you have to actually be there among the people. You have to learn things that you couldn't otherwise learn here. In the past summer, I went to Hong Kong to intern at a manufacturing company.
I'm enrolled at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Today I took my Chinese 252 class, which is Chinese narratives. It's about historical Chinese legends. So we go over different myths and different texts from ancient China. My experience in China has affected my career plans. Some of it is now I have a better idea of what it's like to live in China. I'm also know certain issues I'm more interested in. I knew roughly going in beforehand that I wanted to do something with international related, and then going to China convinced me I'm interested in Asia. I think it's really important for our country to send young people over to learn Chinese in general and improve relations to understand their culture better. Chinese and American culture have similarities, but they are quite different. Anika is going to college nearby here at Central in Durham, so we meet up occasionally and we work on Chinese together.
Ultimately, I chose North Carolina Central University. Right now, my major is public administration with a minor in Chinese. I don't believe that I would have chose public administration as my major if I wouldn't have been in China. I plan on doing foreign service or diplomacy. The APSA trip showed me not to judge a culture by what I see on TV, and basically just be open to new things and don't be closed-minded.
China had a huge impact on my life. I honestly felt as though that I go to a DC public school, it's majority African American, and the statistics at my school are really, really low. And I figured that what's me applying to this program? Is it a waste of my time? Am I gonna get in? Am I not gonna get in?
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you. Welcome to Mason.
Thank you.
When you come across a student like Jeffrey, who's both academically talented, very curious and motivated, and has had this language training in high school, the admissions office does take notice. We were very interested in him committing to come here to Mason.
When I got in, I was shocked. Lenitra kept emailing me at least every week or every 2 weeks about Mason and what they do, and asking me help with my application process, and if I need any questions, I can stop by.
The capacity to learn is very much a function of setting high expectations and creating kind of energy and excitement for learning. Capacity is not capped. Sometimes we think, oh, there's an IQ, right? There's this magic number that represents some limit to how much we can really learn. We see teachers every day and students every day defying that conventional wisdom, that know in the right circumstances that you can really unleash the excitement and power of learning, and you see kids from all kinds of different backgrounds can learn language, can operate and adapt to different environments that are dramatically different than what they've been experienced to date, but they adapt. This kind of program proves that if you really unleash that capacity, anything's possible.
I was able to be part of what was really going on in China. I think from that point on, it just changed my way of how I viewed society, how I viewed people. The world has become a bigger place to me.
Reporting live from inside the mind of me. I'm trying to see if I can find knowledge my mind will probably need. Honestly, I think it's better to get out the box and leave and stop being blinded with comment and open your eyes and see new things and switch to a different routine if your own earth is moving. So you should hit your ride and get the going. And really there is no use in sitting frozen. That's how the world